I'm 32F and recently got engaged to my fiance, Luke, who's 34M. We've been together for a little over 3 years now. I work in urban planning, and Luke works in tech. We met through mutual friends at a work happy hour, clicked over small stuff like city zoning complaints and music, and things just kind of flowed from there. No whirlwind romance, no drama, just something that felt stable and good. I have a younger sister, Harper. She's 29, works as an interior designer, and she lives about 20 minutes away from me. We're not close. We never really have been. Growing up, there was always this quiet competition she created, even if no one acknowledged it out loud. We were polite in front of people, played nice at family events, but it was always surface level. The kind of relationship where you smile through gritted teeth and change the subject when things get personal. Harper is the type of person who walks into a room and makes sure everyone knows she's there. Loud, charming, always perfectly dressed, and somehow manages to make everything about her without looking like she's trying. People love her, especially our mom. My mom's 58, and her favorite project has always been trying to reconnect her daughters. She'll drop hints during phone calls, send us old photos with captions like "Remember this? You two were inseparable," and tries to plan lunch dates like we're all in a Hallmark movie. It never works. Harper and I aren't enemies. We just don't trust each other. Luke and Harper always got along, but I figured it was just because he was being polite. He's a laid-back guy. He listens more than he talks, and Harper took full advantage of that. She'd throw in little comments here and there when we were all together. Stuff like, "Wow, Luke, you have so much patience if I was late," or "Must be nice to be with someone so emotionally grounded." At first, I laughed it off. I figured maybe I was reading into it too much. But they added up over time, and they always left me with this weird knot in my stomach. We got engaged last November. Nothing big, just a quiet dinner and a ring he helped design himself. I thought everything was solid. No major fights, no hidden issues. But about 3 months later, things shifted. Luke got distant. He'd cancel plans, avoid serious conversations, and brush off anything about the wedding. At first, I thought maybe work was just stressing him out, but it kept happening, over and over. Eventually, I pushed. I asked him point blank if something was going on. That's when he finally admitted someone had talked to him, told him I had a history of emotional issues, that I'd been hiding it from him. According to them, I'd been in and out of therapy for years and had a pattern of instability. I've never had any of that in my past. No therapy, no breakdowns, nothing close. I asked him who said it. He didn't want to tell me. He danced around it for a while before finally saying it was Harper. At first, I thought he misunderstood. Maybe she said something out of context. But when I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She just shrugged and said she maybe brought it up in conversation and that it came from a place of concern. She said she wanted to make sure Luke really knew what he was getting into. Like sabotaging someone's relationship is just a normal part of sisterly love. I told my mom. She didn't react the way I hoped. She just told me to rise above it and not cause drama, especially not with Harper's engagement party coming up. Apparently, I was expected to pretend none of this happened and show up with a smile so the family wouldn't be uncomfortable. I didn't go. I didn't make a scene. I just stayed home and told Luke the full story. He believed me. He said he could tell Harper had exaggerated or outright lied, but something had already shifted between us. Even though the truth came out, it was like this seed of doubt had been planted. The trust wasn't fully gone, but it had cracks in it now. A few weeks later, Harper posted her own engagement photos. Her fiance's name is Graham. I hadn't heard it in years, but I recognized him immediately. We went to college at the same time, had a few overlapping classes, maybe a party or two. I didn't know him well, but I remembered him being the quiet, observant type. Kind. Too kind, probably to know what Harper was capable of doing to someone if they crossed her or made her feel exposed. Everyone else saw a happy couple. I saw a guy who had no clue what he'd signed up for. I didn't plan to do anything. I wasn't going to meddle. But I knew what Harper was capable of, and I knew exactly how easily she could flip a story to suit her. And for some reason, the thought of Graham going through what I just barely made it out of didn't sit right with me. Harper's engagement was announced 6 months after she and Graham met. No one expected it. Not our family, not her friends, not even the people she worked with. The photo she posted showed them standing on a beach at sunset, all smiles and champagne. The caption was something about soulmates and finding peace. People flooded the comments with hearts and congratulations. The next morning, my mom called. She said we needed to start planning an engagement brunch. I told her I wasn't interested. She ignored that and started listing venues. I reminded her Harper nearly ruined my relationship with Luke. That ended the call. Graham and I weren't close in college. We had a few classes together and shared some mutual friends, but we never hung out one-on-one. He was always quiet, polite, never the center of attention. I remembered him being thoughtful, someone who didn't get pulled into drama, not the kind of guy Harper usually went for. A few days later, a friend from college sent me a picture of Harper's ring. She followed it with a casual message, pretty wild considering she was still seeing that other guy a few months ago, right? I asked which guy. She didn't know the name, just that Harper was going out with someone else when she and Graham first got together. The timelines overlapped. This wasn't new. Harper had a pattern. She'd throw herself into relationships fast, love bomb people, talk about forever within a few weeks. Then, out of nowhere, she'd ghost them or spin things into chaos. With one guy, she moved in after a month. When he asked her to stop messaging her ex, she called him controlling. She broke up with him the next day and told our parents he was toxic and paranoid. I wasn't planning to get involved. Graham didn't owe me anything, and I didn't owe him either. But the way things were lining up made it hard to ignore. It felt like watching someone board a plane you knew was going to crash. That weekend, I had brunch with our cousin Nora. She asked if things with Luke were better. I told her we were taking it slow, no pressure. She picked up her mimosa and paused before saying Harper always acted a little too interested in him. Not flirtatious exactly, but possessive. Like she was always waiting to compare herself to me, even in that. I didn't reply. I just made a mental note of it. 3 days later, Harper texted me. She said she wanted to reconnect and invited me to a spa day. I agreed. I wanted to see how she'd act face to face. The spa was a high-end place she liked to show off. She booked us for facials and a foot soak. She talked non-stop, honeymoon options, flower arrangements, table seating strategies. She called me sis 3 times and acted like we were closer than ever. I waited until we were alone in the lounge area and asked her straight out why she lied to Luke. She didn't blink. She just said she told him what she knew. Like that explained everything. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't apologetic. It felt like she'd practiced it, like she'd said it in the mirror and decided that was her truth. I didn't press. There was no point. She didn't see what she'd done as wrong. In her mind, it probably made her the hero. Later that night, I replayed the conversation in my head while going through old photos from college. Graham popped up in one of them. He was at a birthday party I barely remembered attending. He looked exactly the same, calm, just on the edge of the crowd, a beer in hand, smiling at someone out of frame. I sat there wondering how someone like that could end up with someone like Harper. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because she'd chew through someone like him and leave nothing behind. Not out of cruelty, just because it's what she does. She burns bridges and then writes poems about the ashes. I didn't reach out to him. I didn't say anything to Luke either. I just waited, observed, tried to figure out what my role was going to be in all of this, if I had one at all. But after that spa day, one thing became very clear. Harper wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. She genuinely believed she'd done nothing wrong. She thought she was protecting Luke. She thought she was protecting Graham. She thought her lies were just details. And the man she was about to marry had no idea what kind of story he was stepping into. I wasn't planning to blow up Harper's engagement. I just wanted to be ready in case Graham ever came looking for answers. I figured if he ever asked questions, I should at least have real ones, not assumptions, not rumors. The first person I thought to contact was Emily. She was Harper's roommate during her last year of college and lived with her again briefly during a rough patch a couple years ago. We weren't close, but we'd followed each other on social media for years and exchanged birthday messages now and then. I reached out and asked if she had a few minutes to talk. She called me that night. I kept it general at first. Just asked what she remembered about Harper's past relationships and if she knew anything about Graham. Emily didn't hesitate. She said Harper had been seeing 2 different guys around the time she met Graham. One of them was named Mason. She said Mason thought he and Harper were exclusive. Harper told Emily they weren't. The messages said otherwise. Emily pulled up old screenshots she still had, text threads from Mason asking Harper why she hadn't replied, asking if they were still together, trying to plan a weekend trip. These were all dated just a few weeks before Harper and Graham announced they were serious. Then Emily told me something else. Years ago, Harper had faked a pregnancy to keep a guy from breaking up with her. The guy had found out a month later and left anyway. Harper told people he was emotionally abusive to get ahead of the story. Emily didn't buy it then, and she definitely didn't buy it now. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't save anything. I wasn't building a file or collecting evidence, I just needed to know what I was dealing with. I thanked Emily and let her know I appreciated her honesty. She asked if Harper was still pulling the same stuff. I told her it looked that way. I hadn't shared any of this with Luke. Things between us were getting better, slowly. We weren't jumping back into wedding planning or anything, but we'd been spending more time together. Walks after work, simple dinners, no pressure. I wanted to protect that progress. Dragging Harper into every conversation wasn't helping anyone, but Harper wasn't staying quiet. A few days later, we had a family dinner at my parents' place. It was the usual group, just me, Luke, Harper, our parents, and our cousin Nora. Toward the end of the meal, Harper dropped a comment into the middle of a conversation about wedding timelines. She said some people just weren't emotionally stable enough for marriage. She didn't name anyone. She didn't have to. She looked straight at Luke when she said it. Nobody said anything. The table just went quiet. My dad cleared his throat. My mom looked down at her plate. Luke didn't react, not immediately, but I saw his jaw tighten just slightly. After dinner, we went back to my place. Luke asked me why Harper kept acting like she knew him better than I did. I told him the truth. I explained how she'd gone behind my back, lied about me being mentally unstable, tried to plant doubts in his mind. I told him about Emily, about Mason, it's about the fake pregnancy, about the way Harper rewrote every relationship to make herself look like the victim. Luke didn't interrupt. He just listened. When I finished, he said she probably wanted him to leave me. I told him she did. And she almost pulled it off. That weekend, I stopped by a local coffee shop to pick up a drink before running errands. Graham was there, sitting at a window seat reading a paperback. I almost walked out without saying anything, but he looked up and saw me, so I said hi. We made small talk, how work was going, how he was adjusting to the engagement, basic stuff. I asked if he'd be open to catching up one-on-one sometime soon. Just us. He nodded and said to let him know when. That was it. Just a short conversation. But it changed everything. Because now the door was open. And I wasn't going to let Harper close it before the truth got through. Graham met me at a quiet bar on the edge of downtown. It was a Thursday evening, right after work. The place wasn't crowded, just a few people scattered across booths, low music playing in the background. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a glass of water and a worn-looking notebook. He stood up, gave a polite smile, and sat back down once I joined him. He didn't waste time with small talk. He said Harper told him I had concerns, and that he was willing to hear me out. He kept his voice even like he didn't want to cause a scene. I nodded and told him I wasn't there to attack anyone. I just thought he deserved the full picture before signing up for something permanent. I told him that Harper had lied to my fiance. Luke told him I had a history of emotional instability, that I'd been in therapy, that I was hiding things. None of it was true. She said it to shake him up, and it worked. Graham didn't interrupt. He just looked down at the table. He said Harper had mentioned family issues before, but never gave details. He always assumed it was about some old drama or sibling rivalry. I said it wasn't rivalry, it was control. Harper didn't like when things weren't about her. Then I laid it out. I told him about the two guys she was seeing when they first met. It's about Mason, who thought they were exclusive, and about the pregnancy lie from years ago. About how she spun stories to make herself look like a victim anytime she felt cornered. I didn't show screenshots. I told him I had them if he ever needed proof, but I wasn't going to shove it in his face. He didn't ask. He believed me without needing more. He said there'd been a weird moment recently. He found a message from someone saved in her phone as just M. When he asked about it, she snapped. Said he was being paranoid. It had stuck with him because she didn't usually react like that. I told him I wasn't trying to blow up his life. I just wanted him to see clearly. What he did next was his call. He asked why I was telling him now. I said no one warned Luke, and it almost ruined everything. I wasn't going to sit back and let that happen again. He nodded. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he thanked me. He didn't say much else, just that he appreciated the honesty. We paid our tabs and left separately. The next evening, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. She asked if I really met with Graham and what I thought I was doing. I answered once. I told her what Harper said about me was a lie. Graham deserved the truth. I wasn't going to lie just so she could pretend everything was fine. Her next message came in 10 minutes later. It was a wall of text, guilt, disappointment, and the usual family comes first line she always used when Harper got caught doing something. I deleted it. I didn't write back. Harper didn't reach out. Not that night. Not that weekend. Nothing on social media. No text. Just silence. But I knew her too well to think that was the end. Something was coming. I just didn't know when. A few days after I met with Graham, Harper dropped a vague message into the family group chat. Just one sentence, taking space to focus on growth and honesty. No one responded. Not even my mom, who usually rushes in with heart emojis or questions when Harper posts anything remotely emotional. That night, Nora called. She'd heard from a friend who works with one of Graham's friends that he'd moved out. He was staying in a short-term rental downtown and wasn't telling many people why. No announcements, no statements, just quietly packed a few bags and left. The next morning, my mom called again. She started with the usual soft voice. Said Harper was confused, hurting, trying to sort things out. I didn't let her finish. I told her if she called to defend Harper again, we were done talking. She didn't say anything after that, just hung up. That was the last time I picked up her calls. 3 days later, Graham texted, short and clear. He said he ended it and that I'd been right. He thanked me. I didn't ask for details. I just wished him well and didn't reach out again. Meanwhile, Harper went quiet on social media. She didn't delete her accounts, but there were no more posts, no stories, no updates about wedding planning. The ring wasn't in her profile picture anymore. For someone who once posted every outfit, every coffee, every mood board, this was unusual. Then Emily messaged me. She said Harper was telling people the breakup was mutual, that Graham had been too emotionally passive and didn't have the drive she needed in a partner. She told someone he'd started pulling away weeks ago, and that she decided she couldn't see a future with someone so indecisive. The story had shifted again. Now she was the one doing the leaving. Now he was the one who wasn't good enough. Luke and I kept things quiet. No big changes. No dramatic conversations. We were meeting for lunch, going on walks, sometimes grabbing takeout and watching a movie at my place. We didn't talk about Harper. Not once. Not even after the texts or the phone calls. We both knew that dragging her into our conversations had taken up enough space already. About a week later, my dad called. Just one call. No small talk. He said Graham had returned his keys to the apartment and asked not to be contacted anymore. Said Graham was polite, but direct. Didn't want to follow up. Didn't want to talk things out. Just done. I thanked him for the update. He didn't push for anything else. We hung up after that. For once, Harper didn't get to rewrite the ending. No dramatic Instagram captions, no family dinner monologues, just silence. And this time, nobody was clapping for her version of the story. The morning after my dad called with the update about Graham, there was a knock at my door. No text, no warning, just a knock, loud and fast. I checked the peephole and saw Harper. No makeup, hair thrown into a messy bun, oversized hoodie, pacing in front of the door. She looked like she hadn't slept. She kept muttering under her breath and pulling her sleeves down over her hands like she didn't know what to do with them. I didn't open the door. She stood there for maybe 5 minutes, then slid something under it, a thick envelope. I waited until I couldn't hear her footsteps anymore before picking it up. It was a letter, 5 full pages, handwritten, not an apology. It was a list of complaints. She blamed me for interfering, accused me of sabotaging her only real shot at happiness, called me cold, manipulative, jealous, and said I had poisoned the people around her because I couldn't stand not being the favorite. She brought up things from high school, claimed I'd always wanted to tear her down. Near the end, the tone shifted. She said she hoped I'd someday feel what she felt, that I'd end up alone. She signed it with, "You always win, but someday you'll be the one people walk away from." I folded it up and stuck it in a drawer in my kitchen. I didn't want to throw it out right away, but I also wasn't keeping it for any real reason. I just wasn't sure what to do with it yet. That night, Luke came over for dinner. I told him Harper showed up and left a letter. He didn't ask for details. He just nodded and went back to slicing vegetables. We made pasta, opened a bottle of wine, and didn't bring her name up again. It was the quietest night we'd had in weeks. That weekend, we left town. Nothing big, just 2 days at a lakeside cabin about 2 hours away. No phones, no wedding talk, no family drama. We sat on the deck, grilled burgers, and read. That was it. When we got back, I had a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was sharp. She said she was deeply disappointed in me, said I'd ruined Harper's future out of bitterness, said I should have just let things go. I didn't listen to the full message. I deleted it halfway through. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. I just stopped picking up. Harper didn't come by again. No calls, no texts, no cryptic social media posts. It was like she hit a wall and finally backed off. The silence didn't feel like a truce. It felt like a fracture no one had the tools to fix. Weeks passed. I got back into my routine. Work, gym, small dinners with Luke. I didn't tell many people what had happened. It wasn't a story I wanted to rehash. Then one afternoon, I ducked into a local bookstore on my way home. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to kill time. I turned a corner, and there was Graham, flipping through a hardcover near the front window. He looked better, lighter, like he'd finally stopped carrying something heavy. We made eye contact, exchanged a quick smile, and talked for a few minutes. Nothing heavy, just catching up. He said he was seeing someone new, said she was kind, easy to talk to. He wasn't rushing anything. I told him I was glad. He said thank you again. Then we parted ways. That night, I opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out the letter. I read it one more time, folded each page neatly. Then I fed it through the shredder, slow and steady. There wasn't a single word in it worth keeping. Almost 2 months had passed since Harper stood outside my door. No texts, no calls, no letters. Nothing from her, and nothing from me. The silence didn't feel tense, it felt done. I didn't check with mutual friends. I didn't ask Nora if she'd heard anything. I kept my distance. My phone stayed quiet. No updates, no family drama spilling into my day. For once, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself every time I opened a message. Luke and I didn't rush into anything. We didn't sit down and map out a new engagement plan. There were no long talks about timelines or expectations. Just walks, quiet dinners, and weekends without interruptions. We were careful, but not hesitant. We didn't bring up the past unless it made sense. Most of the time it didn't. My mom hadn't called since the voicemail where she blamed me for Harper's meltdown. No texts, no emails. She picked her side when she defended Harper, and I didn't chase her for round 2. Father's Day came around and I invited my dad to dinner, just the two of us. No plans to fix anything. We picked a steakhouse near his office. He wore a button down, ordered the wine, asked about work. We kept it light until dessert, when he put his fork down and said I'd been right not to lie. Said he should have backed me from the beginning. And they went back to sipping his drink. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but it was the first time I'd heard anyone in my family admit Harper wasn't just misunderstood. That was enough. 2 weeks later, I passed by the same bookstore where I'd last seen Graham. This time, he was outside, waiting for a coffee from the shop next door. He saw me first, gave a small wave. We talked for 5 minutes. He looked rested, said he was doing better. He mentioned Harper was telling people he cheated on her, but no one seemed to believe it. He laughed a little and said she lies like it's breathing, not to win, just to survive. He mentioned someone new, said she was calm. That was all. Luke and I took a weekend trip to a mountain town a few hours away. No signal, no screens, just trees, cold air, and the sound of a fireplace crackling. We went hiking, ate greasy food, played cards. On the last night, we sat outside wrapped in blankets, watching the fire. Luke leaned back in his chair and said he was glad we waited. Said he liked who we were now better than who we were before. I didn't answer. I just nodded. That was enough.